for the Indians. 1 run on, let's see, 1 hit. That's all. We got 1 goddamn hit.
You can't say goddamn on the air.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
From the Gateway Lounge in Sioux Falls, it's Nobody's Listening Anyway. Here are your hosts, John Gaskins and Matt Zimmer.
So you know how a little less than a month ago, mid to late July, we had the annual conversation, as we do, about how we're trying to hold and clamor on the summer, but football camps and school for people like your son Arthur, who's 9, right?
He's 10.
Are coming around the corner. It seems like it sneaks up on us every year, the back-to-school sales and the tension of the opposites there, and how you're trying to soak it in but relent and get excited. It's football. We're slaves, and we're excited about it. Where are you at now on August 11th about all this, now that you've done a couple weeks' worth of camping?
Yeah, I find myself looking forward to the first football games.
Me too.
You know, I watched the Hall of Fame game the other day.
Yeah.
Not the whole thing, but I flipped back and forth, and it had a great ending. So I, was watching in the fourth quarter, and when I was at practice just yesterday, we're talking to some of the players. It's like, okay, it's August 11th, August 10th. First game's August 30th. Okay, 20 more days.
Yeah.
And I kind of hate myself for that. Like you said, that I'm already counting down for football. Like enjoy August. Baseball, weather, golf, go outside.
Pools.
But yeah, it's already kind of – and even on Saturday or was it Saturday that the Hall of Fame game was? Yeah, I think I turned it on, and Jen even goes, oh, I just got excited for football, seeing football on TV. And I was like, yep, I know. It's kind of –
Here we go.
Yeah.
And in the last week, since you and I sat here at Gateway Lounge, both the Yotes and the Vikings are getting closer to their quarterback situations. The Vikings resolved it, so we're going to lead with that. And you went to Vermillion last week and found out that they at least have the front runner, the freshman Austin Majetski. So that's also exciting. Like, that means we're getting closer. We're getting closer to the finish line. Like, these quarterback battles are coming into clearer pictures. And so that's kind of where I'm at. Now we're getting somewhere. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, now we're getting somewhere. It's closer. Now I'm excited. But also part of it is just, good God, it's so hot and or gross all the time outside. Like, I'm kind of over it. Like, the summer weather isn't what it's cracked up to be when summer starts, and I'm ready for the temperatures and humidity to drop.
I'm not with you there. I love it when it's hot.
Okay. Cordell, what do you think?
I like winter.
You like winter?
I like ice fishing.
Ice, because of ice fishing. All right, I wish I were as adaptable as you are, but I'm not there. But here's another barometer for me. On the drive here to Gateway, I'm listening to the radio. I know I'm a dinosaur. I still listen to the radio a lot. When I'm driving in the car, I like sports radio and sports talk. Flip over to some music every now and then. And on a station that I like that plays a lot of classic rock and tunes, Here We Go, it's Queen, We Will Rock You, and We Are the Champions. And usually I turn it right away because we're in sports. We hear these songs all the time, everywhere we go for years. And I'm just kind of like, But this time, I kept it on because I'm like, you know what? Vikings named Kyler Murray the starter today. We're going up to Brookings tomorrow. Cordell and I are going up to Vermillion next week to do basically full-on slot media days, talk to coaches and players, gathering awesome material for Sioux Falls Live and Midwest Sports Plus. So it was kind of like, let's go, because we're going to talk about some of that today anyway. So that's when I'm willing to sit through as a choice. We Will Rock You. That's where it gets for me. All right, Kyler Murray, Vikings. You tweeted. Your response to this was, I wonder who the Vikings' new head coach will be next year. Go ahead. That could mean all kinds of things, but that was your reaction to Kyler Murray being named the starter today.
I just think this points to him getting fired.
Yeah.
Because from all accounts, Kyler Murray has not been good. And I'm not a JJ stan. I'm not a JJ guy. I'm not an anti-JJ guy. I just kind of look at it as if what we're hearing from almost every source that covers the team is that neither one of them have been very good. It's been kind of even. JJ has a better day. Kyler has a better day. If that's the case, then I don't understand not going with JJ. Now, if Kevin O'Connell is seeing it differently than everyone else is, that's one thing. But I just don't think the ceiling for Kyler Murray is very high. If he's been as mediocre as we hear, okay, then you're going to go 7-10, 8-9 with Kyler Murray as your guy. Well, if that's the case, he's going to get fired. I feel like the playoff failures, the every other year kind of stuff, the quarterback whisperer, like it's kind of time to show us something. And I just don't see that happening with Kyler Murray as the quarterback. Now, play me this back in December when they're 13-4, and okay, I was wrong. But I just think if they both stink, go with the young guy who's still got some upside.
Couldn't disagree more. I agree that if they go 7-10, he'll get fired. And I'm not going to predict Kyler Murray's going to be Sam Darnold from 2024.
Different kind of quarterback, but
they had wretched careers because they were in terrible situations, terrible teams, bad defenses, bad O-lines, not great receiving cores, young quarterbacks. They were put with the Jets and Panthers and with Kyler Arizona to die, to play desperate football and make a lot of mistakes because they're with bad teams. I think Kyler Murray's going to be better in Minnesota than he was in Arizona, and he showed flashes of greatness there. I think now that he's been named the starter and will get the number one reps.
His career before coming to Minnesota is better than Sam Darnold's was.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And I believe in the fact that now he's going to get the number one reps, a lot more of them, then
that he'll start performing better.
Yes, he'll start performing better in practice and in the games. And I'm not going to make any grandiose prediction that the Vikings are going to the Super Bowl, but they are going to be a much better team with him at quarterback than they would have been with J.J. McCarthy. And it appears there's so many reports and opinions on this. Every practice it can throw a consumer for a loop.
Yeah.
Let's above everything, all the stats that are always given out in certain situations, whether it's goal line or late game or there's so much context that needs to be put with that. Who's working with the ones? Who's working with the twos? And you remember, and some guys have been keeping score. JJ won today. Kyler won yesterday. Yeah. It's obvious neither of them have been awesome. It's obvious neither of them are standing out. And if that's the case, then go with the more proven, more experienced quarterback who's going to be in a better position than he was with his last team, therefore perform better, and give the Vikings a better chance to win games.
Well, and I certainly see that logic. And also, it's easy for me to sit here and say, if they're both going to stink, go with the young guy, because my job isn't on the line.
Right.
Kevin O'Connell's potentially is.
Yeah.
So even if he does think, it's kind of a wash or whatever, if he does feel like he's got to save his job, I understand going with Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
You have more trust with him. He's done it before. Maybe not to an amazing degree, but certainly better than JJ has. Yeah. Do you trust JJ at this point? Absolutely not.
No.
Even if I was a JJ guy, and I'm not, you can't make the argument that he's proven or that I trust him. No, he hasn't proven anything. There's potential. There's stuff to like. I'm not terribly optimistic, to be honest.
Yeah.
I just think it's, I throw that Kevin O'Connell quote of his own back in his face. Organizations fail young quarterbacks more than young quarterbacks fail organizations. Well, are you giving up on this guy after 10 starts in 2 seasons when he's been injured for a lot of it? Are you failing him by kicking him to the curb? And now, to be fair, they haven't officially kicked him to the curb yet. He's still on the team. He said he is the QB2 ahead of Carson Wentz. I just, I just don't have a good feeling about any of it. I don't think either one of them are very good. And I do think in the short term, Kyler Murray's ceiling is higher, and Kevin O'Connell has to worry about the short term. He has to try and win some games. They think they have a roster. I don't necessarily agree. They think they have a roster that can go to the playoffs, that can be a contender. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, then I suppose you do got to go with Kyler Murray.
And his floor is higher ceiling, higher floor. I just don't think if you're a JJ stan, you're unable to come to the table with an objective, reasonable conversation.
No, you're just like I just want to give him I just want to see more of him.
And it's pretty amazing how many JJ stans are out there.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because the kid seems so likable. He's Johnny Gung Ho. He'd play a quarterback in a movie. He looks like a movie star, acts like a good guy.
A number 10 pick on him.
Yeah, I get
a lot in him.
Well, he's in a catch-22. He needs more time and more games in the NFL to develop and get better and make fewer mistakes. But there's no time for Kevin O'Connell, or really most Vikings fans, to let him fail and let the team lose. And it's very debatable how high end the roster is and how far the roster can take everything. But it's decent. It's a wild card-ish roster that could be elevated by a great quarterback or a great coach or a hot streak at some point in the season. And you just can't afford to melt with the continued mistakes. of a quarterback who, A, might just not be very good, period, but B, certainly is not ready to be good yet.
I just think, maybe the best way to put it is I think they're potentially a 4 or 5 win team with JJ and a 7 or 8 win team with Kyler, and I think going with Kyler gets you fired. Going with JJ, I'm not saying that buys him another year necessarily, probably doesn't, which is why he's got to do what he's got to do. It's just I don't think they're a good team either way. And I think going, and again, there's a new GM who didn't hire him.
Right.
So
Yes.
if you go with Kyler Murray and it doesn't work out, that just kind of, you're almost asking to say, well, we gave you your shot to do that and we're moving on.
I'm fairly certain, so they've already obviously they got rid of the old GM, who was the one that picked JJ, and I don't know how much Kevin O'Connell
all signs
had
point
to say
to
in
that JJ was a Quezzy guy.
Yeah, and so now I can't remember if it was Brzezinski who was GM filling in at the time when Kyler Murray came into the fold. I'm pretty sure it was because Noah Teasley was hired just before minicamp back in May. But fair point. I think it's in both cases. I think both the head coach and the GM want Kyler Murray, so it's kind of both of their decisions. And quickly, how much of a sham may have all of this been? Because you don't sign up Kyler Murray, a guy who's 7 years as a starter in the
Right.
NFL, who everybody understands he'd be a better, more proven quarterback if he were with a better operation, versus a guy in his second year who was the 4th worst rated quarterback in the NFL last year.
I mean, even if I was a JJ guy, and like I said, I'm not really. I kind of assumed once they signed him, it was a done deal.
Yeah.
And when they said it's an open competition, it's like, okay. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, not really. And people that are acting mad about it or this whole thing was a sham, yeah, we all kind of knew that.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to be surprised?
What?
Because there are people making the argument, and again, I haven't watched 1 second of any of it. I don't have an opinion on who was better. I just am reading from people who are
Right.
there
Yes.
that it's either been close or some people said JJ's been better or his upside makes whatever. Okay, cool. It was going to be Kyler all the way anyway. Be mad about it if you want, but I think we all knew that's where it was headed.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like Kyler should be performing, according to the reports, better than he has, even with his limited number of reps.
Well, maybe
and
now that
familiarity
he
with
doesn't
the
have
offense.
to fight for the job
Yeah.
anymore and he can just take
Yeah.
all the 1 reps, maybe he'll start playing better.
No, I mean, he said it all along, like, I need more reps, and I always thought that was fair. And there's an argument to be made that, and I believe this argument, that if he were given more reps right from the start, if he were just named the starter from the start, then he'd be better at this point. He'd be better and more ready. People are freaking out, like how ready he'll be. There's a month left. There's a month before the first game.
And it's also worth pointing out when Sam Darnold was there, all we heard in training camp was how terrible he was.
Yeah.
That he had an awful
Yes.
camp. And people were saying, it's a good thing for Sam that JJ got hurt, or JJ would have been the starter right away as a rookie. So
And JJ ripped it up in the first or second preseason game.
I was there, actually, yeah. And
Yeah.
I was like, holy cow,
Oh,
we
hey.
got a guy,
Yeah. Yeah. So you take everything,
with a huge grain of salt. Yeah.
dump truck of salt is how I like to say it. And the final component, what did I have? I had it. I feel like I'm in grumpy old men now. What was your point? Huh? I don't know. I mean, I think we've expired all of it. But I do disagree with it feels like a 7-win team with Kyler, 5 with JJ. I think this could be an 11 or 10 or 11-win team.
Could.
Easily. I think the roster is strong, stronger than you think it is. I don't think it's as strong as some people feel it is. But what about the rest of the roster to you? Are there enough holes to poke that you just are not as confident as a lot of Vikings fans are?
I don't like where they're at running back. I think TJ Hawkinson's really overrated. I think there are questions on the offensive line. I think there's questions at defensive line and linebacker. Is Harry Smith coming back? Where other than Justin Jefferson, where are the stars? Where's the wow on this roster?
Yeah.
And Andrew Van Ginkel's a year older.
Yeah.
Harry Smith, if he comes back, is a year older.
I'd say the wide receiver position is the only one I'm confident
Wide receiver position is the only one Cordell's confident in.
And I kind of agree.
that could
in. The best wide receiver room in the NFL, but what's that?
Someone's got to get him the ball.
that could mean a lot. I was going to say Van Ginkel, and then you brought him up. Yeah, he'll be a year older. I get camp performances. You just, especially one night under the lights. Ooh, it's under the lights in front of fans. Blake Cashman had 3 sacks the other night, and he's a guy that could be a great pass rusher. Jalen Redmond, guys are big on him. I guess, from those who are actually watching this and reporting on it. And this is from Ben Lieber, who's a former NFL player who can actually make observations I trust. Chuck Deming. So maybe the pass rush is going to be better than expected. The secondary certainly is very questionable because the experience there is questionable. So, which is why they might have to bring back Harry Smith. So, I get all the question marks. Offensive line is about a mediocre offensive line if they're healthy, but there are some veterans there, which is good and bad.
Healthy.
They're veterans, but they can get hurt, and they do.
Healthy. I think Donovan Jackson has a chance to be better in year 2. I liked that draft pick.
It feels like it's a team the offense is going to have to carry it.
I think so.
And if it does, quarterback play better be
strong.
strong.
I have faith in Brian Flores. I think he's good, and he'll squeeze more out of that unit than it's maybe a whole is greater than the sum of its parts kind of thing because of him. But Viking optimists are like, look at this roster. I'm like, I am.
Yeah.
What are you looking at?
I'm with you with the lack of star and proven star power. Flores can make it. They were top 5 in defense and a lot of metrics in the NFL last year, and the roster wasn't that much better last year. So I just think I'm a little more optimistic than you are, but to say that your view or your crystal ball of this team is not going to make the playoffs, I can't say like, oh wow, that's stupid. Of course,
the
it's
NFC
possible.
North is good too.
They're good, but they're not great. I think the Bears are the favorite, but they're going to have a harder schedule because of last year. But I like the Caleb Ben Johnson combo, and it feels like the Lions have kind of peaked with the whole Dan Campbell thing.
Yeah, but
and the Packers just kind of they're 10-7, 9-8 every year.
I think people have already kind of bailed on the Lions, like, oh, their window was open and it's closed now, and I don't know. They still have some good players.
Yeah.
And
Batting odds still has Lions winning.
Do they have Lions winning it?
Who does?
Vegas.
Vegas has the Lions winning the division.
Well, they're going to have an easier schedule.
Lions, Bears, Packers, Vikings.
Jared Goff is good. Their defense obviously is a big question mark. Packers are going to get Tucker Kraft back, and guess what? Tucker Kraft is the best tight end in the NFL. That's going to be a big addition too. So it's just hard for me to look at those 3 teams and convince myself the Vikings are better than any of them.
Yeah, that's fair. And they have to play 6 such games against those 3 teams, and then the rest of their schedule. It looks like they got the Colts, they got the Saints, they got the Bucks. Winnable. They have the Bills at home.
Yeah, to be fair,
winnable.
I haven't gone through and done go through the schedule, and maybe if I did, I'd go, oh, I see 9-10 wins here. But
yeah, they go to the Patriots. I'm just going to go through all of them. They host the Panthers. They host the Falcons. Not afraid of any of those. They host the Lions. They host the Commanders. They go to the New York Jets. There's just a lot of there's a lot of very up in the air there. A lot of close games, unsure how good all these teams are. Nothing on the schedule says, oh, that's a loss, forget it. And nothing really says, like, oh, this team's that awesome that they're going to trot out there and win. So, going to be fun. Should be fun. By the way, the point that I had that slipped is either you can look at the Kyler Murray, J.J. McCarthy open competition up until now as either a sham and a big mistake and a big waste of time because Kyler could have been getting more number 1 reps and gotten better with the offense sooner, or, as Kevin O'Connell wanted to paint it today, Mr. Happy, that the competition pushed Kyler Murray, gave him a little nudge.
I mean, it probably
edge
did
that he needed.
And it's like if he ever got to a point where he's like, Jesus Christ, am I going to get beat up by J.J. McCarthy?
Yeah.
Then maybe it did.
Yeah, but I think
you owe it to J.J. McCarthy. Again, he was the number 10 overall pick. You said he was your franchise quarterback. You owe it to him to at least let him compete for the job, I think.
Yeah.
You didn't bring in Josh Allen or Joe Burrow.
Right.
You brought in Kyler Murray.
Yep. Last one before we turn the page. The trade deadline's always late October, early November. And a nugget I heard today was just keep in mind maybe – the Vikings, if Kyler Murray's playing well enough, that we'll say goodbye to J.J. McCarthy before the season is over. At the same time, both of these guys have an injury history, especially a little guy like Kyler Murray. So,
well, I mean, do we think the Vikings' 2027 starting quarterback is on the roster right now?
Great question.
If
Murray has a good year, you got to pay him a bunch of money.
I think it's more likely that JJ's the starter next year than Kyler, but I don't think that's terribly likely either.
I will say this. If Kyler Murray gets hurt, who's to say that Carson Wentz isn't a better option than J.J. McCarthy? Or at least, or either way. Like, it's fine. That's a toss-up. They proved it last year. I mean,
right,
Carson was okay,
but if
JJ was
Kyler Murray
okay.
goes down, then I think you abandon any thought of really competing. And then why don't you go with JJ? And well, all right, let's find out what we got. We don't, we're not going to win anything. Go out there and sink or swim.
And one place I heard it was suggested that JJ would go to if he gets traded would be the Chargers and reunite with Jim Harbaugh and then be a backup to Justin Herbert, which would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it would.
Okay, meanwhile, there's a lot to get to with the Jacks, and boy, there's going to be a lot of Jackrabbit football on this show the next 2 days because you and I, Cordell, Zach Borg, we're all going to be up for SDSU Media Day in Brookings tomorrow. That'd be Wednesday. So we're going to come back with a ton of interviews and footage. And so let's talk USD for a moment, stick with the quarterback thing, because this is why you go do the reporting. You went there late last week and kind of figured out and reported that they have a front runner in the 3-horse quarterback race, and that's the freshman out of Colorado, Austin Majestic.
Don't give me too much investigative reporting credit. I showed up, and that's why I showed up.
Well, that's what I meant.
But Vitz had told me after, I think, the first practice of the year, I had asked him, well, what's the timeline? And he said after 4 or 5 practices, we're going to start giving one guy the majority of the reps. That doesn't mean he's won the job, but that kind of means like he's got first dibs, sort of. And I was like, 4 or 5 practices, that's pretty quick. And he said, yeah, all right. Well, I waited 4 or 5 days, and I was like, okay, I should probably go back down there and see who's getting the majority of the reps. And I get there, and it's hard for me to tell just watching him, but I'm standing there. It's 15 minutes into practice. I don't interview anyone until practice is over, but Vitz just comes over and starts talking to me, and I'm like, well, you said 4 or 5 practices, and he goes, yep, number 1. Right there. So he was excited to share that information.
I love it.
And I think that tells you it's his job to lose.
Yeah.
And from what I heard, they had a scrimmage the next day. If I'd have known that, I would have waited and come the next day during the scrimmage. But from what I heard, Modrzweski had a good day at that scrimmage. I will be surprised if he is not the starter on opening day.
And you're getting this decision, which seems to be a firm decision at the moment, from he's a new head coach, but he was this team's quarterbacks coach the last few years. This guy works with quarterbacks in every interview. We did with him spring and then Missouri Valley Football Conference Media Day. I guess those are the last 2 that I did with him. He was pretty nuanced, and I'll use the word firm again on what he is looking for. He seems to have known exactly what he was looking for. So, judging by the way he gave you the news, that he's pretty sound about this, that the decision, if not obvious, seemed pretty convincing for him.
I've been at 2 practices, and at both of them, I thought Modrzweski had the best arm, just looked the most athletic. I'm not charting completion percentage or anything like that. I'm certainly not, in the huddle hearing how, players are responding to Modrzweski, how he handles himself, that kind of thing. I've never met him. I've never talked to him. I've never heard him talk. But he looked like the guy to me, just based on a little bit. Like, okay, he's got a big, big arm. He's 6'5". He can sling it. Set all the records in Colorado. 2-time state player of the year. I mean, I'm kind of going, why was Deion Sanders not in on this guy? I mean, I don't want to oversell him. I'm sure there was a reason. But he looks really good.
And how did he end up at USD? I mean, maybe some people who are consuming this know, but I'm kind of like, Gatorade Player of the Year in Colorado. And he goes to South Dakota. Nowhere in the FBS.
Don't sell the Yotes short. They're an FCS team that goes to the playoffs every year.
It's more a statement about him. Just as if we ever get a chance to talk to him, and at some point if he becomes the starter, we will.
I would assume that Jackson and Bison weren't in on him.
Yeah.
I tried to. It looked like USD was the first D1 to offer him, so maybe that alone just was what sold it. But also, and this is something that Vitz probably isn't going to address, and I wouldn't even ask him. But like, if he's as good as they think he's going to be, how many years are they going to have him? So because that's the thing none of us want to talk about, but kind of have to. If a guy's really good, he's gonna. Where did LJ Phillips go?
Yeah.
So you start him now. Maybe you get 2-3 years out of him.
That's what you're always dealing with.
Yeah.
You never know. It's funny. It's interesting you bring up that point because I was chatting Yesterday, go ahead.
They think he's if they choose him ultimately, it'll be because he's the guy who gives us the best chance to win games right now. It isn't a eye towards the future thing. But that always plays into it, and will continue to play into it even more as long as we're in this current era of, and unless this 5 for 5 and Save College Sports Act thing passes, you're always going to have to at least take those things into consideration.
Yeah, you're right. It's a snapshot of where we are now, because in the past, sometimes these decisions were made based off of, we got a future here, and we got 3 or 4 years here, and we're going to ride with something a little bit more raw, but it's something we want to get on the field now and develop, and boy, are we going to be gangbusters with that guy next year and the year after and maybe the year after if he's a freshman. And that's not how you're operating anymore. The college has become more like the NFL, not for long. Like, what wins now?
We saw that with Taryn Christian. We saw that with Mark Gronowski. We saw that with Aiden Bauman. But all three of those guys were also the best choice to win games as rookie starters. Taryn was competing with Zach Lujan, and Lujan had more experience. Yeah. Taryn, okay, if we go to Taryn now, we get all this. He's going to think how good he'll be by the time he's a senior. And that did play out, but he was good right away, too.
Yeah.
Aiden Bauman was good right away. Mark Gronowski took the Jacks to the national championship game as a true freshman. He wasn't nearly the quarterback he would become, but he was still the right guy at that time. So
right.
You can pick a guy knowing he's the best option for you right now and still think how much better he can get if we continue working with him. You can develop players and get production from them at the same time.
It's also interesting how we say this before the kid is truly the starter and has played it down. But, you get stars in your eyes in August, this time of year, with stuff like this. And that's what's the excitement and the fun about August in football. But the guys who are established in the FCS are all back with their schools, starting with Chase Mason. And certainly I will believe Dan Jackson, Curtis Riggs, Chase, there were 7-figure offers, Power Fours. Bo Brungard, I don't know what kind of interest he had, even as the Walter Payton Award winner, because he's only 6 feet tall. So, and I asked him. He told me he's coming back because he's a Youngstown kid and he wants to ride it out there. But those two plus Kaminsky at UND,
DJ Williams, Southern Illinois.
DJ Williams, Southern Illinois. Then go to over to Montana. I mean, those are the top 2 rated teams to start the year. The defending national champs, Justin Lamson and Ayat over at Montana. Now, those are just two. Well, Montana has a great offense, period. They have a lot of great weapons. Mediocre defense. Montana State's just a great program. They're pretty much NDSU light, is what Sam McKim said yesterday. So in talking to Sam McKim about this yesterday from Skyline Sports in Montana, that's the topic that was brought up. A lot of the best quarterbacks at that level are back. So either they weren't highly coveted and sought after and got enough money offers elsewhere, or they truly like where they're at and want to accomplish a national title. So what we do know at SDSU is that's what Chase Mason wanted, was to just be here and compete at this level.
Mm-hmm.
I just found it interesting. None of these guys left, and I don't know why.
Yeah,
but maybe that's a good sign for, again, back to guys like Majestic if he's good.
The devil sort of thing. If you're, say, DJ Williams, and I have no idea if other schools were kicking the tires on him, but okay, maybe you take $500,000 to go to Tennessee, but you lose the starting job. You don't win. They're not just going to hand an FCS guy a job in a Power 4 in the SEC or the Big Ten. Right. Mark Gronowski kind of had walked into that situation because Iowa was desperate.
Yes.
And it didn't really work out that great. I mean, he got paid, good for him, but their offense continued to be stuck in the mud, and he just got cut by the Dolphins. And I'm, would Mark still be in the NFL if he had played another year at SDSU? Maybe. I don't know. And I kind of throw that more at the feet of Iowa than at Mark. But that's sort of the question. Like, okay, yes, Mark got paid. Good for him. And these other guys can go get paid. Like, again, if you're a DJ Williams, a Jerry Kaminsky. But would you rather have $300,000, $500,000 and be the backup quarterback, or have no money or whatever? Chase Mason's getting some money.
Enough to get taken care of.
Right.
That's what Sammy said yesterday, too.
Right. And know you're going to be the starter, and you're going to be the guy, and they're going to do everything they can to put you in the best position to, I'm not. I guess what I'm saying is I'm not terribly surprised that it played out that way.
Kids want to play. They still want to play.
Right.
And it just seems, and quarterback, it seems to me there's less movement to FBS and Power 4 because L.J. Phillips went to a Power 4 at Iowa to be a backup. You mentioned Gronowski to be a starter, and before I forget, that was partly on Mark. If Iowa wasn't a good enough place to put your skills on display for the pros, it's a place that buries quarterback play and passing game in general.
I don't know.
So you knew what you were getting into when you go to Iowa.
He did. I thought, Mark beat Diego Pava and Vanderbilt in the bowl game.
Oh, I know.
And he played great.
Yes.
And it was almost kind of like maybe you shouldn't have waited till the 13th game of the year to let him do this.
Yeah.
I'm still pretty bullish on Mark Gronowski being an outstanding quarterback. Is he an NFL quarterback? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know he's a winner. I saw what he did at South Dakota State, and
better than Iowa allowed him to be.
The thing I keep going back to is there was an article in one of the Iowa papers after Mark signed with the Hawkeyes where he was negotiating or meeting with them or whatever. They had the new coordinator. Remember, they finally got rid of Ferentz's brother.
Yes.
And Mark says to the new coordinator, everyone tells me that Iowa is where quarterbacks go to die. So you tell me why I should come here.
Yeah.
And he got the answer he wanted, apparently, but I don't think they held up their end of the bargain. I watched more Iowa football last year than I ever have because of Mark. And I found myself constantly going, catch the ball.
Yeah.
Run a route. Let him throw.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I don't think that was on Mark.
Yeah.
I think he did really well for what he had to work with.
Yeah, not every time. He had some misses as well. He had plenty of misfires.
Absolutely he did.
But
he's not Tom Brady. I'm not saying he is.
But I lean toward how you're feeling about all that. Yeah, I was surprised that they didn't let him go
a little
bit more.
He had better offensive talent to work with at South Dakota State than he did at Iowa. Maybe
know
not
what?
offensive line,
Well,
but skill position.
When you go through the years, the running backs that have ended up in the NFL, Tucker Kraft.
The Yankee twins, Tucker Kraft.
Yeah. And Chuck Long, Iowa quarterback, analyst, podcaster, he said with me, these receivers can't get separation. It's kind of hard to find
Get
them.
open.
Yeah. And by the way, why? Because what receiver wants to go play at Iowa?
Right, yeah.
It's just they don't value the passing game very much there.
Haven't had a good one since Matt Vandenberg.
Hey, Brandon Valley. Before we move to the Jacks, anything else about USD? That was obviously the wow and the headline last week.
Well, I went
Anything
down there
else?
to do a story on their offensive line.
Okay. Yes, and you did because it's brand new.
Yeah,
Hello?
I didn't realize how new it was. They have one returning starter in Brock Wolf, came from Kansas State, and by all accounts was pretty good. He's going to be, I think, one of the starting tackles. But the last game of the year, Montana, Brock Wolf was out. He didn't play. So none of the guys who started on the offensive line in that playoff game are back. Now, they got the kid, Ellingson, I think is his name, from T. He missed all last year with an injury, but he was a starter the year before that. They brought in Jake Utley, who started games at UTEP at the FBS level. They've got some guys. Another guy, I can't remember his name, but started some games at Portland State. They've got experience. It's not like this is a bunch of freshmen or guys who have never played before. But, it's different. It's one thing to plug and play at running back or wide receiver, but at offensive line, those five guys have to work together, and it takes a while to build that. And Brock Wolf admitted to me, he's like, that was something we struggled with last year. Well, then I would think it'll be even more of a struggle this year if all five guys are essentially playing with each other for the first time. Now, it helps that they have a lot of talent. Talent can cover up some weaknesses. Vitz is really, really excited about their new offensive line coach. His name is James Bain. He was the assistant O-line coach with the Gophers last year. He's got some pretty good bona fides. And just watching him in practice, he gives some Jason Eck vibes. Seems like a guy who's going to be good in that position. But that's a big question mark. Another thing worth pointing out is when I asked Vitz specifically to single out anyone who's impressed him at the offensive line, the first guy he mentioned was Lucas Feldkamp, Brandon Valley kid who originally committed to Augie, and he was going to go to Augie, and USD came in at the last minute and got him, and he said, I'm okay.
Corona Premier.
And he said, as a redshirt freshman, second-year guy, he's knocking on the door to start. So, and I'm not surprised. He was really, really good at Brandon.
Okay.
I thought that was a steal for Augie, and then USD came in and took him.
Anything defensively?
I didn't pay a lot of attention to the defense. I was there to watch the quarterbacks and do a story on the offensive line.
Okay.
So I couldn't say much.
Again, we'll play the hits. Chris Dixon. There's at least one good returning player at every level of the defense.
I take that back. I was noticing on my own, because I was watching the quarterbacks, how good the secondary looked.
Oh.
And then when I asked Vitz after practice, what's standing out to you? What do you like? The first thing he said was, I really, really like how our secondary is playing.
Okay.
And I was like, well, I saw the same thing. So that's something I think to be encouraged about.
All right. Again, we'll be in Vermilion next week, and that'll be our show next Wednesday, August 19th. Our day in Vermilion, our day in Brookings comes tomorrow. And our day is coming for the first games of the year, August 28th on a Friday for the high schools, the 29th for the Jacks and the Yotes. Actually, the 27th, Augie and USF get things kicked off on a Thursday night. But when we really get rocking and rolling in September, Saturdays and Sundays, especially if you're on the west side of Sioux Falls, but you're right off the interstate exit no matter where you're coming from, Gateway Lounge, Fridays and Saturdays, Gibbs Sports Bar on the east side, same owners. They know what they're doing when it comes to the games to show, at what times. They're intentional about it. And they have awesome service like Tiffany right here, always on the ball. Twofers every day of the week. That includes these game days on Saturday and Sunday. Crown, Captain, Jack, and Tito's. Twofers, so you can get a double for the price of one or two for the price of one, whatever you want, every single day of the week at Gateway. I think they do that at Gibbs. Not absolutely sure, but get ready to come watch football here and there. Looking forward to our day in Brookings tomorrow. You've done some more Jacks chats. It's not as spicy and sexy up there with a lack of a quarterback battle or controversy. But you were basically last week, you said Chase Mason's been throwing some piss missiles. Anything new in your latest trip there?
He still looks really good.
Yeah.
And clearly has, more of a command of everything.
That was my word, by the way, piss missiles.
No, that's Tom Brady's word. You stole it from him.
I didn't even realize that.
No, there was a game this year where he said that on the air.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Okay, I did. I did. Yeah, I know it's not. Yeah, I certainly didn't invent the term.
No, it was funny. I had a game on, like it wasn't the Vikings, so it was on in my house, but I wasn't really paying that close of attention. I was like walking through the kitchen, and Brady's like, "That was a piss missile," and I was like, "I don't think you can say that on TV." That's pretty funny.
Yeah, well, you can say what you want, just don't get caught drunk driving.
Yeah. Chase looks very good, and I did a whole bunch of Jack's chats this past week, and we didn't talk about him a ton because, like you said, it's not like there's a competition or anything like that. But every time his name did come up, it's just really apparent how much every single guy on the team really loves him, and I think that's noteworthy because that was kind of the big question mark, right? Like, we know he's talented, but he's got to replace Mark Gronowski, the GOAT, the guy who, as great of a quarterback as he was, what was the headline item with Gronowski all the time? It was what a great leader he was. It was what a great teammate he was, how he was the reason this team, became a national championship. He was the one who kind of molded this locker room and this team, and they all followed his lead. And Chase has done such a good job, and he really deserves a lot of credit for threading this needle sort of in creating the same kind of feelings about him from his teammates, being the same, getting that same sort of vibe, but not just trying to, because he said from the jump, he's like, if I try to be Mark Gronowski, everyone in the locker room is going to go, Chase, what are you doing? You're not Mark. And so he didn't do that. He said, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be my own kind of leader. And it's whatever he's doing, it's working. And, he carries himself with a different kind of swagger than Mark did, but it's there. You can't miss it.
Right.
And I just think it's cool, really, to hear, the offensive lineman or a transfer who just got here or a true freshman talk about, how much they like him and how excited they are for him. Obviously he's going to be the straw that stirs the drink as far as this team's success goes, but also you can tell that everyone is rooting for him to have a big year individually. They want to see him go on to the next level and do special things.
There's a lot of doubters, whether it be fans that just aren't Jack fans and they're fans of the rival, who do not want to believe that there were 7-figure offers to play in the Power 4 or that he's going to be an NFL draft pick, and that's fine. He's only played 9 games. He's won 8 of them. 267 yards passing, 90 yards rushing per game, 18 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 67% completion. He's really freaking good. There were some wow moments, not a lot, and we were robbed of the opportunity to see him play the best competition against North Dakota State last year. And that's a setup to ask this. Samuel Kim yesterday, he just said Chase Mason's barely in the top 10 of quarterbacks in the FCS coming into the year, and that's just mainly because guys like Brungard, Kaminsky, DJ Williams, they've played a little bit more. Although Kaminsky was a first-year guy last year. The two quarterbacks in Montana. And we can debate that all we want, but it feels like, are we willing to say by the end of the year Mason will be known as one of the top guys in the country?
Probably. I mean, he's more talented than any of them.
And it has a lot to do with who's around him,
too.
too.
And I say that without seeing a lot of those other guys. But I just, those other guys weren't lined up to be the starting center fielder for Nebraska as a teenager. Those other guys weren't D1 athletes in 3 sports. Those other guys
240.
aren't 6'4", 6'5", 240, whatever it is. He has tools the other guys don't. So if you want to say he's not top 10 just based on he hasn't proven it yet, he hasn't produced as much as those other guys, I have no objection to that. Bo Brungard has literally accomplished more as a quarterback than Chase Mason has. That's fine. That doesn't mean he's better than him.
Right.
We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
People ask me all the time, is Chase really going to get drafted? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe. I think so. I don't, because the thing I keep saying to kind of further that point is go back any year in the last 10, 15, 20 years. And look at the mock drafts in, say, July and August. Here's who we think are the top 10 quarterbacks that are going to be taken in this upcoming draft before the season starts. Well, then the whole college football season happens, and then look at who are the top 10 quarterbacks in the mock drafts in December, January, February, March. Yeah. Sometimes they're probably pretty similar.
Yeah.
Other times they're completely different. Other times there's a guy that was at the very top of the list in July who's not even on it in January. And vice versa. Yep. Carson Beck, Ty Simpson, those guys, all reversed last year. Carson Beck was at one point the big shot, and then Ty Simpson, and we didn't even know if he was going to be Alabama's starting quarterback last year at this time, and he ended up going in the first round. We just don't know. So if Chase has an average year, I would say no, he's not going to get drafted. If he has an amazing year, he might go in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 2nd. I have no idea. Tony Romo, Joe Flacco, these guys were FCS quarterbacks. Steve McNair was an FCS quarterback. Tom Brady was a 6th-round draft pick. We just don't know.
Yep, I agree with all of that. And there is more to the Jackrabbit football team than the quarterback, and we're going to learn about all those things again. SDSU Media Day tomorrow, and a kind of a Jackrabbit show here on Happy Hour. Later tomorrow afternoon into the evening is when we'll be able to pump out all of the material, and then we'll do the same thing in Vermilion for the football team next week. A former Jackrabbit became just the 2nd Jackrabbit and the 2nd native South Dakotan to ever be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So the Adam Vinatieri thing's a really big deal for us around here.
Is Jim Langer a native South Dakotan?
So
too?
he's not. He's from,
Who's the other
he's
one,
from
then?
Minnesota. Norm Van Brocklin.
Oh, yeah,
So
I knew that.
Norm Van Brocklin was the first ever coach of the Minnesota Vikings before Bud Grant showed up. And he was a prolific quarterback, won the NFL title before the Super Bowl
Rams,
existed. The Eagles.
Eagles.
He played for both the Rams and the Eagles,
okay.
but I think he won a title with the Eagles. Anyway, and he was a character, man. Google Norm Van Brocklin, or just, Google Patrick Royce and Norm Van Brocklin. You'll hear good, colorful stories. And he was from Eagle Butte, by the way. He's from out in the reservation. Anyway, Vinatieri's the 2nd Jackrabbit behind Jim Langer, who, of course, played for a couple of Super Bowl teams with the Dolphins. And Vinatieri, nobody disputes when you go through the list, best kicker in NFL history. First of all, did you watch the speech? Did you have anything to think of it?
I did not watch it.
You did not.
No.
Okay. Did you hear about some of the zingers he had about Belichick and Tom Brady and Peyton
I did
Manning?
not.
Okay. I'll go through them quickly. So, Vinatieri had as much personality in a Hall of Fame speech as I think I've ever known or seen. And I don't watch all of them, but he had more material for people that wanted to put material out there on social media and then talk shows on Monday than I've seen in a long while. Because of Bill Belichick, he called Bill Belichick the greatest coach of all time, or overtured at that. Attention to detail, blah, blah, blah. But also pointed out that Belichick wasn't there. And it's probably, he's like, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a lot going on over there at UNC. Mm-hmm. And maybe he's on the recruiting trail looking for the next Lawrence Taylor. And maybe he's going to judge his girlfriend's cheerleading competitions. With Tom Brady.
Zing.
Yes, with Tom Brady. He said, I was lucky to play for the greatest New England Patriots quarterback of all time, Drew Bledsoe. Everybody laughs, and then he
Did
said,
he think he was at a Tom Brady roast?
It's that's what Cordell said.
Yeah.
Then he said, but then within 20 seconds he had 2 zings. He then said, Tom's not here today. I'm glad he isn't, because if he was, he would come up on the stage and slap me the way he just slapped Logan Paul. I don't know if you saw that, like Tom Brady and Logan Paul did a thing for UFC. And then Peyton Manning, he said, I'm glad Peyton Manning is here today and so we can use his forehead as the teleprompter. So the Peyton Manning forehead,
pretty low-hanging fruit there, but still a good joke.
So he is, and then Pat McAfee. I mean, he goes for the gusto. He goes for 3 of the greatest figures in NFL history, all of whom he played for and with, and then of course he goes to Pat McAfee, who famously filled in for Adam Vinatieri when College Game Day went to SDSU in 2018 or 19. He said. He said, and then there's Pat McAfee, someone who is even more, the only person I've ever known to be more excited to hold my balls than my wife. Yeah, Zim gave an eye roll there. Of course, that got the most laughter because, he channeled his inner 12-year-old there. So that gives you an idea of what Adam Vinatieri's speech was like. And I'm gonna get to a question here. He also did the whole, but he combined the swashbuckling arrogance. He rattled off all of his accomplishments. I thought that was weird. Like he said, most career field goals, 4 Super Bowl championships, all-time points leader. I'd go on, but I only get 10 minutes. He actually said that. I don't know if he was. I don't know if he was trying to feign arrogance or what, but that didn't land. And he did. He did the whole thing of thanking his parents, his siblings. A lot of his NFL teammates, his NFL special teams coach, and then talked about determination, hard work, and he hopes he's remembered as well for being a great father, husband, that thing, as somebody who kicked the ball through the uprights. But he only mentioned the word South Dakota once, and that was when he was saying that's how he wants to be remembered, as a kid from South Dakota who didn't give up on his dreams. Not once in 20 minutes, which was 10 minutes over the supposed limit, did he mention Rapid City Central or South Dakota State. And I'm just pointing that out. I'm not saying he
John
needed
Stiegelmeier, Kim Nelson, Mike Daly.
Nobody. Nothing. None of them. Not one. 20 minutes. A lot of jokes.
I'm not surprised.
And why is that?
I don't want to make it sound like I'm bagging on Adam Vinatieri, but, has he ever been back here since he's been in the NFL? He's not a guy who has really kept in touch the way, say, a Kalen DeBoer has.
Yes.
There could be reasons for that. In fact, I know there are a couple, but, he got benched at SDSU. He didn't really have a great career there. Right. He kind of made himself. Yeah. Maybe he doesn't feel like he owes John Stiegelmeier anything. He's like, I taught myself how to kick.
And Mike Daly was the coach.
Or Mike Daly, whoever.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a little disappointing, but I'm not surprised.
So I made light of this on the show yesterday, and I tried to do it in a non-critical way, just pointing it out. Like, I'm guessing there are some Jackrabbit fans and some South Dakotans watching this. It's not every day you get an NFL.
SDSU made a huge deal out of it on all their social media.
They did.
So I bet whoever was putting those together was like, cool, you couldn't give us one quote that we could put on our Twitter account?
They would blow it up if he would have said anything about his time at SDSU, and he didn't. Yeah. And when he was done, I haven't checked the current records, he was the all-time. So he did struggle, and he did get benched, and Mike Daly told the story with you. You wrote a story about that 8 years ago, and Mike Daly told us the story about that when we were right over there here at the Gateway a month ago, and I played it yesterday. He had missed 3 or 4 extra points in a row, not field goals. He was missing extra points in Division II football. So he got benched, and a defensive lineman took over, and he was lousy, and Adam got his job back while he kept punting, because according to Daly,
he was a good punter.
He was a better punter than a kicker. And so a point that I made yesterday, I don't want to bag on Adam Vinatieri either. I don't know why he didn't mention. I feel like I should be able to ask him and extract that. And of course, he doesn't do interviews with any of us around here.
That's kind of what I'm saying. Like he doesn't talk to us.
We don't know.
It doesn't seem like it's a big part of his DNA or something that he likes talking about. And that's his prerogative, to be clear.
It is his prerogative. His speech is his prerogative.
We don't know what we don't know.
Thank you. And I tried to make that clear yesterday. But, and by the way, I did a poll today just for fun. 85% of Jackrabbit fans do not care that he did not mention SDSU. They're not bothered by that. But most guys in those speeches do. They at least say something about their time in high school and college.
Pretty sure it was Kim Nelson's quarterback at Rapid City Central.
Yes.
You know?
And the last point I'll make is, so that benching, and I can't remember, maybe you do, was he a junior, a senior? Do you remember what year it was?
I'm not, and I don't remember.
But he was benched for a few games, and he came back to kick, and he finished his career as the all-time scoring leader in SDSU history, and then didn't get drafted, didn't sign an undrafted free agent contract. He started his career in
the
Europe.
World League, right? Or whatever it's
yes,
called.
Yeah, the Amsterdam Admirals, and then somehow he got picked up by the Patriots, and the rest was history.
Yeah.
And again, in his speech, he talked about character, determination, never giving up. You know, all these guys want to have some sort of message for the kids out there. That would have been like that's the ultimate story. That's the low point of his time in Division II football, and he went from that to the greatest ever.
I mean, maybe it's a painful memory, you know. I said, we don't know what we don't know.
Okay. The Twins.
They're like 5 minutes, dude. I gotta get going.
What do we know? Yeah, I know. What do we know about the Twins?
They're hanging in there because the American League stinks.
Yeah.
That starter they got from the Orioles, who had like a 6 ERA, has been great in both of his starts since they picked him up. They're hitting the ball a little bit better again after going through kind of an offensive slump. They need to get Buxton back. They need to get Joe Ryan back, and Joe Ryan needs to be good when he comes back. If they get Buxton and Ryan back, and those two can perform, I think they got a good shot to make the get one of those wild cards. I mean, it's a pretty low bar. You know, they're 3 games under 500 and 1 game out of the wild card spot.
Yeah. Two under 500, a game and a half back, and they're only 3.5 back for the division lead. So they're still chasing a division lead. They got 9 in a row at home, and they started by beating the Orioles 9-5 last night.
Well, you know, each of the last 2 years they had a 10-game winning streak.
Yeah.
Get one of those, and you win the division probably. You know.
Just for fun, I looked up. I'm like, God, the Twins just hang around 500 a lot in their existence. Since the year 2002, Ron Gardenhire's first year, the Minnesota Twins, 1,958 wins, 1,948 losses, 10 games above 500 in a span of nearly 4,000 games since 2002. Since the year 2000, they're 6 games under 500. That was kind of like 2000 was kind of like the last year of the dark years under Tom Kelly. Then he had one good year and turned it over to Gardy. So it's the Minnesota Twins. They just a lot of years are in the 500 range. There have been swings of 3 or 4 years where they were really good. You know, you had that 101 win year when they won the division in 2019. But it's just a lot of languishing and definitely not a World Series favorite. But
when
not
they
terrible.
had Johan Santana and Brad Radke and Joe Nathan on their pitching staff, that team was good enough to win a World Series. They just choked.
Wow.
You know?
Over and over again.
Yeah.
For like 5 years.
Yeah, and it was usually to the Yankees, but it was, you know, the A's one year. In 2002, they beat the A's in the first round and then lost to the Angels in the ALCS. They had some World Series caliber teams. It's been a while. And even the 2019 team, I don't remember the pitching staff that well. The Bomba squad that hit 300 or whatever home runs. You win 100 games. You're World Series
there's the
contender.
Bomba squad. Yeah.
But and I thought in 23 when they ended their streak, you got Pablo and Sonny Gray at the top of the rotation. You know, they had a shot there too. I think Joe Ryan was hurt in the playoffs, and that's why he couldn't be part of that. Bailey Ober had to be the Game 3 starter. That cost him. But this is not a World Series team, I don't think. Although I will say, you go out and completely revamp your bullpen, and you go from having 0 good relievers to now you have like 4 or 5 that are pretty decent. Their closer has not blown a save this year. It'd be nice if they had Pablo, and without Pablo or Joe Ryan, how do you make this work at this rotation? I just don't see it. But again, just get a wild card berth, go to the playoffs. That'd be pretty cool.
There's enough there to keep you engaged
Absolutely.
most nights.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's a way to hold on to summer. We bring it all back full circle.
Tomorrow or Thursday night is the Field of Dreams game, so that'll be fun to watch.
Do you get excited about that one?
Yes.
Why?
Because it's fun. It's cool.
Okay.
The first one was like one of the greatest games ever. It was Yankees, White Sox, and they're like both teams hit homers in the 9th inning. I remember watching that with Arthur. I think he was 5 or 6 at the time, and that was almost kind of like the moment he decided he loved baseball. It was.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I love that movie and all the goes with it. I actually applied for a credential to go cover it. I didn't get one, but
this year.
yeah, I
Okay.
don't know if I would have gone anyway, but I asked at least.
It's they've mostly kept it somewhat pure. Like they don't have stands in the outfield. I like that. Keep the corn in the outfield. They do have the giant scoreboard getting in the way. By the way, the St. Paul Saints and the Iowa Cubs are playing there tonight, and I think it's on MLB Network.
Oh, really? I didn't know
Either
that.
tonight or tomorrow night. Yeah,
watch
good
that
old
too.
little regional matchup in AAA ball. Last one out the door is our dead guy of the week, Don Nelson.
Yeah.
Who, look, I loved him as a coach because he loved offense. Chris Johnson is going to laugh and point at me or shake his head, but I mean, Don Nelson was one of those coaches like Paul Westhead in the 80s in college ball, where just score a zillion points a minute, and defenses, hopefully you don't need it. And he's like one of the winningest NBA coaches ever. Never won a title, probably partly because of the mentality, but god dang, his teams were fun to watch.
And he was a great GM, too, not just
Yeah.
a great coach. When I think of Don Nelson, I think of Dirk Nowitzki.
Yeah.
Because people around the NBA were like, what is your deal with this Dirk, this German guy?
Yeah.
And it took him a couple years.
Yeah.
The first year or two was kind of like, yeah, this guy's a bust. And Dirk Nowitzki released a statement when Don died saying, like, I had my career because of him. He believed in me, and he saw something, and Dirk ended up being, probably one of the top 2 or 3 power forwards
Yeah.
of all time.
And he was the coach of those Mavs teams that had Steve Nash
Yep.
and Dirk Nowitzki.
Obviously a guy who could identify talent in addition to coaching it.
According to my uncle Jeff in Lincoln, who's 70 years old, he mentioned that was one of his favorite players. And this is, we're talking about Don Nelson.
Oh.
Like in the 70s for
Yeah.
the Celtics.
Yeah.
Coached the Bucks in the 80s, coached the Warriors for a long time. I think in the 90s. I think he was the coach of the Tim Hardaway
sounds
Warriors.
right. Mitch Richmond, Chris Mullin.
That didn't hoist any hardware, but sure had a lot of fun. And he was the coach before Rick Carlisle took the Mavericks to the NBA Finals. He set up the pins for Rick Carlisle. But you know what? To me, one of his great achievements is when I think of Don Nelson now is once he was out of basketball, he spent the last decade of his life in Maui smoking a lot of weed and playing a lot of poker with Woody Harrelson, Owen Wilson.
I didn't know that.
And Willie Nelson.
I
Good
think I
friends
do
with
remember
Willie
hearing
Nelson.
that he was a big pothead at the end of his life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not to say like, oh, pot's great. It's just like the man clearly was having a lot of fun in his golden years. All right, get out of here. Good to see you. As always, he's got to go. He's got a kid. He's got a life.
I'll see you tomorrow morning.
Yeah, we can talk about that one thing. Yeah, we'll talk about that one thing. Our whole SDSU Media Day thing for football and all sports. So we'll certainly have the football well covered for you. A lot of one-on-one interviews here on Happy Hour tomorrow, including the head coach Dan Jackson and the quarterback Chase Mason. And I've got it all up here. Who else we want to talk to? But we'll see what we get. It's getting that much closer. Zach Borg every day. Camp Confidential. High school football. He's on board with us full time. And so if you're a high school football enthusiast, just go to SiouxFallsLive.com, MidwestSportsPlus.com. The MS Plus app will allow you to watch all this. And it's coming. Happy Hour daily, and then high school football on Fridays and all of our coverage on Saturdays of the Jacks, the Yotes, Augie, and USF. For video producer Cordell Wright and the awesome people here at the Gateway Lounge, I'm John. Happy Hour. Talk to you in Brookings tomorrow. Cheers.
Why are you laughing?
That was a terrible outro.
You.
You guys need another round of drinks?
Yes.